This is the Fifth Estate Winning Headlines, your media police post, coming to you from the Fort Hall School of Government from Nairobi, Kenya. In this segment, we summarize some of the headlines that you may have missed this morning. We also take a look at the political pieces that we call cartoons in this country. Today is the 18th of October 2022, and I am GK.
I am MC Squared.
And I am 2J, and in case you missed today's headlines, here they are. In the Daily Nation, filthy rich hustlers. In the Standard, millionaires to form hustlers' government. The Star, Ruto makes big about turn on hustler fund. And in the People Daily, hustlers CSs worth 6 billion shillings. MT Squared, please can you tell us more about these filthy rich hustlers?
Before I do that, what is your net worth?
My net worth combined is probably my phone, my laptop, and maybe a nice pair of shoes, I don't know.
You know what happened yesterday is that the vetting process in Parliament reminded us that a hustler is not about their net worth alone, but more about the means through which they acquired their wealth. Indeed, if we were expecting the hustlers to have a net worth of about 2 million, we were very disappointed.
True.
What we saw yesterday were figures ranging from 500 million to 4 billion. In fact, what the hustlers on the ground, the Mama Bogas and the Makanga learned yesterday is that they have billionaires among them. Some nominees said they have a small farm worth around 400 million, while some said they have camels worth 260 million. Others said their meager earnings from the years of public service is just 500 million. If you put the camels and the small pieces of land together, the combined wealth of these 5 hustlers was 6.1 billion.
Yeah.
Wow.
This is an average of 1.2 billion for each CS nominee. If you extrapolate this, by the end of the vetting process, the 22 CS nominees might have a combined wealth of 25 billion shillings.
Wow.
I think what really happened yesterday is that the sources of their huge amount of wealth was questionable. Surely, from camels and apartments, can you make those kind of billions? You know, nobody even talked about the tenders.
Nope.
No one. But let us be realistic and flip this. Let us forget about their sources of wealth for a second. The wealth could mean that wealth is no respecter of persons. Whether hustler, whether dynasty, wealth can come to any of us. To quote the good book, time and chance happens to them all. And maybe this is what it is. From all of this, however, I just have a few questions. One, when it comes to our leaders, surely there must be a distinction between wealth and their ability to lead country.
Is there?
Two, there must be a greater reason to come to power, not just to accumulate more wealth, but to have a vision for where they would want to take country. And for these reasons, I feel the vetting process was underwhelming. Number one, because it left us questioning the quality of our leaders. 60 years of independence should have given us the best crop of leaders so far. Instead, it seems that we have reached an inflection point. Both the voters and the nominees seem to have lost sight of the purpose of the vetting process.
Very true.
As today's headlines reveal, the focus was on wealth and camels. Maybe we can't really blame the voters for what we saw yesterday. The hustler government has the majority. We knew it was just a mere formality.
Completely.
Either way, the nominees will be approved. 60 years after independence, could we be back to a one-party state?
It's a very interesting
Taking us
question.
to the edge. I think what was quite interesting, on to your point, is how Speaker of the National Assembly, Moses Wetangula, when they were vetting Alice Wahome,
Yeah.
she failed to come with her certificates and
for her
degrees
degree,
from university.
Yes.
And instead of telling her, can you prove it further? Can you bring the documents later? Is anyone who can vouch for you?
Yeah.
Wetangula himself said, but of course I can vet for you.
vouch for you.
I saw you there myself. Anyway, I guess that's the point of having the majority. it is what you say it is. So I want to go into a little bit of a story, a Fifth Estate favorite,
Yes.
where once upon a time a hustler died. When he arrived in heaven, he asked whether this was hustler's paradise.
Ooh.
Baffled by the question, St. Peter ordered the hustler to spend 1 day in hell and 1 night in heaven. And after the experience, he was to choose which of the two was paradise.
Okay.
So on the first day, St. Peter put the man in a lift and lowered him deep down into hell. When the lift opened, the hustler was amazed. Hell was actually beautiful.
Was it?
It was everything the chief hustler has said it would be. The next day, the young hustler was taken back up to heaven.
Yeah.
God and the clouds were boring. They had no kick, no excitement. So after the experience, he was asked to cast his vote. And like many of us might do, he chose hell. Then he was put back in the lift and lowered back into the depths of hell.
Yeah.
When the doors opened, the young hustler was shocked. Hell had changed. It was dark, dirty, smelly, and nasty. And when he asked what had happened, Lucifer replied to him, "Yesterday, we were campaigning. Today, you voted. And that is the difference." And in my view, this is exactly what the Star is telling us today, minus the analysis. The headline speaks to William Ruto's big U-turn on the Hustler Fund.
Yeah.
And this comes after hustlers were shocked to realize that the fund isn't what they thought.
Nope.
On the campaign trail, Ruto suggested that the Hustler Fund would be free money for the people. The hustlers cheered and sent kisses to Ruto. But then he clarified, it would not be free.
No.
The Hustler Fund would be loans, but with no interest rate. Because the government can't be seen to be giving out free money. And it was fine. The hustlers still cheered and sent Ruto kisses his way.
Yeah.
And now the U-turn has continued. President Ruto has now told the country that the Hustler Fund will not be interest-free. The hustler dream is slowly dying. Now, the point of this story is not that St. Peter lied about heaven and hell,
Yeah.
or that Ruto misled us about hustler's paradise, or even that hustlers themselves are fools. The fact of the matter is that, as Machiavelli told us, a prince does not have to keep his promises if they do not serve him.
Fact.
So Lucifer's words from this fable ring true. Yesterday, we were campaigning. Today, you voted. That is the difference. Now, a political U-turn is simply part of the game.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
After all, you cannot expect a politician to keep their promises. And while this may be risky, it works, especially when you have someone to blame.
Yeah.
And this is what the UK is teaching William Ruto right now. Newly elected Prime Minister Liz Truss was just 37 days into the job when she started to undo the campaign promises that got her elected in the first place.
Yeah.
Reality set in, and so she did the best thing. She made a political U-turn.
Yeah.
And to save face, she transferred her political sins to her closest and most dependable ally, Minister for Finance Kwasi Kwarteng, and replaced him with a new white face. I don't know if those things are related. So can we make a prediction then? That Ruto, just like Liz Truss, will find a scapegoat to transfer all of his political sins to. That way, if the Hustler Fund fails to take off, he will have someone else to blame. So who will it be? Let's take bets. Riggy G, his new wealthy CS nominees.
The billionaires.
Better yet, he could blame UHURU Kenyatta. Personally, I would put my money on David Ndeng, the face of the bottoms-up economic model, and the president's newly put in economic advisor.
Yes.
To me, that sounds like a very good place to start.
Wow. Yesterday we were campaigning. Today you voted. And
That's
that's
the
the difference.
difference.
I
That's the
love
difference.
that quote. That's going to be my quote for the rest of 2022. So keeping in line with the whole idea of scapegoat, allow me to give you my submission. Last week, 2J told us that the Ruto government will start to let us down slowly.
Yeah.
If 2J is right, and I believe she is 2J, question remains, how will Ruto go about undoing his promises without losing his base?
Tell us.
So, for all of you to know, Ruto is the master of the narrative. The proof is in how he weaved the hustler narrative to win himself the presidency.
Yeah.
Through his mastery, he fashioned himself as both as the church's anointed candidate and as the Gema kingpin. That was an incredible feat. But as a master of narrative, Ruto knows that there were some promises he made in the campaign that he can keep, and some he can't. And this is where his mastery comes in. At this stage, in order to appease the people on the promises that he can't achieve, Ruto has resulted in blaming Uhuru. So my bet, 2J, would be on the Uhuru part for the scapegoating. He has painted Uhuru's government as incompetent and so without merit that we need to delete everything and go back to Kibaki. So it becomes a clever strategy to use Uhuru and Raila as his scapegoat. In politics, a scapegoat is like a get-out-of-jail-free card. Using a scapegoat, a leader can get away with almost anything, from failed promises to political missteps to scandals. It redirects the people's energy and attention away from the mess, giving the leader much needed breathing space. And because Ruto has mesmerized the hustler nation, they will happily eat it all up for now. And for that, we must tell Ruto, bravo, Mr. President. This move for the 34 days that has so far come has worked. In fact, you can even blame Uhuru for the failed rains and say that he is the one who brought us COVID from a lab in China. After all is fair in love, war, and politics. However, we would like to air a word of caution to the president. Blaming the Uhuru government for anything and everything will work in the short term, but it cannot work in the long run. Instead, maybe the best policy is to dare to tell people the truth and give them the hard realities. That is that things are bad and it is time to funga mshipi. Because soon, the hustlers will ignore the blame game and ask you the tough questions. You must be prepared for that day.
Oh my gosh, I think that is so true. Just tell us the truth. We know that life is hard right now.
If
you say it now, we may accept it. So on that note, we have a 3-part criteria that we use to judge the headlines by. We ask ourselves, is this headline topical or speculative, repetitive or groundbreaking, and finally, thoughtful or just plain lazy? Now, I like all of these headlines. I really think that they were all quite good today.
All of them have the word hustler in it. I don't know if that was a plan.
But I want to give it to the Daily Nation. Because I think the filthy rich hustler, I think it covers so many angles of what people are feeling right now. A bit of disgust, a bit of intrigue, and a bit of confusion.
100%.
So I would like to award the Daily Nation our winning headline, filthy. Congratulations to our filthy rich hustlers.
Okay, so, I shall do the honors of tossing the rest.
On to the political pieces that we call cartoons in this country, where we also have a 3-part criteria. We ask ourselves, is the headline humorous or dry, satirical or pessimistic, and finally effective or just plain lazy? I want us to change tune a little bit and look at Gado from The Standard.
Gone international here.
What he is telling us today, he is showing us a picture of the president of China. His name is Xi Jinping. And what he is doing, he is sitting on a throne. And that throne is set on an African carpet. He is sitting on the Africans. And he is holding a sword. And for context, the Chinese Communist Party approved him to be head of state for another
5 years.
5
I think that's
years.
a historic thing.
It is,
here in England, it's very
a third term,
A third term.
No, he's the strongest leader since Chairman Mao, of course.
Okay, there you go.
And the reason he is sitting on the on a throne atop an African carpet is because China is the biggest lender to Africa.
That's very true.
Yes.
In fact, I believe it was over the weekend, Kenya was hit with its biggest fine of about 1.3 billion shillings.
$10 million.
Yeah, for failure to make repayment for one of our SGR loans.
Yes.
I think there is accuracy in the cartoon. I think that question should be asked about China as the new imperialists. Quite depressing. I love the SGR. I think that they're parts of China's agreements with the continent that are beneficial. I think
absolutely.
But I think there's also parts that we really do need to question. And maybe that's one thing that Ruto is going to do for us. Maybe.
We shall see.
We hope.
Yeah. All right. I want to suggest that we park that cartoon
Yes.
while we look at the Daily Nation and the Star in conjunction because they
Okay.
speak to the same thing.
Yes.
Let's start with the Daily Nation.
All right. Okay. So, vetting nominees day one. That's sort of the headline of this cartoon. So you have Speaker of the National Assembly, Moses Wetangula, sitting with some short legs, sitting on a bigger person who would appear to be a caricature of President Ruto.
Yeah.
And he's reading off the script that Ruto has provided. So he doesn't have hands. His hands are Ruto's hands. And on the opposite side of the desk is you have the vetting committee on one side, and on the other side you have the 5 people who were vetted yesterday, at least I believe. You have Mudavadi, who said, I think 4 billion.
Yeah.
Muturi, some other millions. Wahome,
Millions.
Many millions.
many millions, as MC Squared would say. Dwale, and I believe Kuria.
Yeah. And I think that the play on words that Ndula did was it's meant to be vetting nominees, but he said vet in.
I didn't
That
see
there is no option, they are in.
They have to be.
They have to be in. Okay, maybe quickly we can look at the Star at the same time.
Okay.
In the Star, we have caricatures of Mudavadi, Duale, Muturi, and other various CS nominees.
Yes.
Yeah.
And they are holding their shirts and jackets open, exposing lots and lots of money, millions.
Millions.
And the caption there is, "We hustled hard for this net worth." It's amazing to me. And I think what's so funny about the cartoon, they almost look like superheroes about to strip and show us their wares,
superpowers.
right? Their superpowers. And I guess the superpower here is their money.
Their cash.
And maybe they did hustle hard, maybe they didn't. But I thought part of an interesting part of the conversation was what Chief Economic Advisor David Day commented on Twitter.
Yeah.
And he said that this is the ethos of the hustler nation, and that ethos is capitalism.
Yes.
It is a promise to give every Kenyan an opportunity to be a billionaire, a president, or both.
But you know what it shows to me is something that MC Squared said, that clearly the way to get to billions is or millions is politics.
Of course, it's politics. No, and that's the point of his tweet. He's saying that capitalism, that what they're offering is how you're going to do that, and that in the end you can do both things, whether you got it by being a president or a businessman or both. And then Professor Mutahi Nguni replied and surprisingly agreed with David Day, saying that we're teaching Kenyans that the ends justify the means.
Absolutely.
Right? So government it is. If you want to get rich, become an MC. Become an MP.
I'll be running in 2027.
So I want to suggest that we toss the Standard. Thank you, China, but no thank you. And between the Daily Nation and the Star, what do we think should have our winning cartoon?
The Ruto script thing has it for me. The Daily Nation has it for me completely.
I would agree.
Yeah.
The puppet master that we don't see.
Master.
All right, so there we go. We have both winning headlines and cartoons from the Daily Nation.
Yes.
Thank you. I want to leave you with a quote before we sign off. It is from Nikita Khrushchev of Russia, and he said, "Politicians are the same all over. They promise to build bridges, even when there are no rivers." Stew on that. Don't forget, you could also find us on your TV screens. You can find us on Pan Free to Air, GoTV, and Star Times. Have a lovely evening, and we will see you tomorrow for day 35 of the Ruto presidency.